Hey, welcome back to the Overflow Podcast. I'm Jeff DeBoer, along with Austin Gibson, Pastor Justin. We have opened up today with quite a bit more personality than we had last week. Everybody's...
Yeah, I was tired last week.
It seemed to be. You seemed
cut trees like I do for a living. It's
you looked and sounded tired last week.
Listen, I fed the boys this morning. I brought them some bread this morning.
Yeah, I got me some protein bread.
I tell you.
Some cinnamon swirl. Blueberry. Austin's feeding us up. He's trying to give us some energy so we can do a little bit better.
Hey, I had a cinnamon breakfast this morning with a little bit of bread added to it. And that's a good thing. Good thing. But gosh, it's good to have you all with us today. We were just kind of, letting our hair down a little bit. Usually sports is the topic of the weekend.
I don't have any hair.
Mine's starting to fall out.
Yeah, and mine's a lighter color. Oh, goodness gracious. I tell you, if you're a college football fan this past weekend, this was not the weekend necessarily that had the higher profile marquee type games, but what games were played were just undeniably competitive. Just had a lot of good college football. Some went to overtime. Some decided right there in the final moments, and just some really good stuff.
Just slide on the final play with Ohio State.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, poor Will Howard just kind of got caught up in the moment, I guess. And but Oregon's still a team that folks are trying to figure out. Big news if you're into rankings and teams that are making an appearance for one of the very few times. I think it's Army and Navy are now ranked, which is
Since
unusual.
1960, I think, is what I saw this morning.
I tell you, they used to carry college football back in the day, and those were always big, big games. And Army-Navy will be that last weekend of college football before we actually get into the bowl season.
I have seen a video of a guy talking about that one time with Army and Navy. Like, how are they not always ranked in the top 10? Shouldn't we always be sending our best to them? You know, so they should always be the best athletes.
Fair question. Those were back in the days when final scores might be 0-0. You know, it was those kind of days, and just defensive battles. But
that's what it looks like it's going to be this coming weekend with Tennessee and Alabama. It might be like a 3-2 score.
Oh my goodness,
it's terrible.
Let's see, both games this week are SEC games. We got Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and I tell you, anytime that the Tennessee Alabama weekend comes around, it's one of the best memories that I'll ever have with my dad, because that was the second Tennessee game that I ever saw. I think I was probably 10, and I just remember as Dad and his uncle, we were all going together. Dad got tickets through the glass plant there in Churchill, and once we got underneath the overhang of the upper level above us, and at that time Shields-Watkins Field was a horseshoe, wasn't closed off, and artificial turf was still new. I just remember as things were starting to develop and they're warming up on the field, the punters, the kickers, and quarterbacks are throwing, my dad leaned over to me and he said, "Son, that man in the houndstooth hat down there on the sideline," and he pointed him out to me. He said, "That's Bear Bryant." Mm-hmm. I'll never forget that. I can even tell you that I had a box of Cracker Jacks in my hand when my dad told me that, because I'm thinking that's a name, Bear Bryant. And, of course, Tennessee was ahead in most of that game, lost it down toward the end. They had a tailback that year by the name of, was it Johnny Musso, who was really, really good. Steve Baselgia was a fullback.
Now that's a name.
Yeah.
Johnny Musso.
Yes. Hey, number 22, before Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry, I guess. He could play. So, but anyway, those being some of the things that we enjoy and put a lot of our time and interest in, kind of falls in line with our message series for the next several Sundays out of the book of Ecclesiastes. And Pastor Justin did just a wonderful job yesterday of introducing the book and also kind of preparing us for Solomon's perspective. It is the word depressing, I think, came out yesterday. Yeah. But it's certainly very thought-provoking, and we are making our way through 11 and a half chapters of what seems to be dark and dismal.
Oh, yes.
But there's a wonderful conclusion coming. So, Justin, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's, the book of Ecclesiastes was written, as Solomon kind of looks back over his life, he started out real well. We talked about yesterday, but then somewhere along the line, he kind of went away from the Lord, and that's what happens. I mean, when you go away from the Lord, you look back at your life, and this is what it is. And this is what he's telling. He's a preacher talking to his congregation, a pastor. He's saying, look, he's right. This book of Ecclesiastes is kind of like a sermon that he wrote, but it's a sermon that he lived out in front of them. So it's a great example. And, what he's telling them is, this is what happens basically for 11 and a half chapters. This is how meaningless life is when you live it under the sun. That's a phrase that's used 27, 28, 29 times. The word meaningless or vanity is used like 38 times, which you mean it's like the wind. Like when you try to chase and pursue things without an eternal perspective, what happens is it's just like grasping the wind. You hold on to it for a moment, but then it's gone. I mean, and so that's what we're talking about, through Ecclesiastes. And just yesterday was just kind of introduction, because I think it's good for people to understand, okay, where is this guy writing from? I mean, we know it's inspired by the Holy Spirit, but why is he writing like this? I mean, this is a guy that, when you read some of it, it's like, it's gloomy. It's depressing. He's writing like he is so frustrated with life and everything. Like it's just, life is pointless, and he really is like a guy on suicide watch, really. He's in a very dark state, but that's the result of a man who had the wisdom of God, yet he didn't apply it to his life. And God told him not to do certain things, and he did. And those women that he loved and their love for those foreign gods pulled his heart away to where he was chasing after other gods, and it just left him empty and void and futile, hollow. And that's what he said. So yesterday we talked a little bit about, some observations that he makes here, but I think it's eye-opening for us, because I believe a lot of people today are searching for true meaning in life, true joy, but they're trying to fill it with all these things in life that just won't fill it. Not one thing, not one person can fill the void in our life. And you look at celebrities that have, went very far and been very successful, and at the end of their life, they say the same things. I used the illustration of Tom Brady yesterday about how that, he said that after his third Super Bowl that, winning 3 Super Bowls is some feat. You're probably one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL.
You're a first ballot Hall of Famer with that, aren't you?
But he said that there's got to be something more than this. Mm-hmm. It didn't fill the void in his life. And so that's what Ecclesiastes is. It's a guy who accomplished everything. His palace, the women, the wine, the wealth, the success he had, expanding the border of his nation, the army that he had, the servants that he had. We'll see that when we get through the book, when we get on deeper and deeper into it. But it's got packed with a lot of practical, spiritual application. And the whole point is, don't do what I did. Don't live this way. Because if you live this way, this is where you're going to end up. Yeah. At the end of your life, you're going to look back and say, what in the world why did I waste my life on these things that don't matter? And I hope and trust that it'll be a good series going into, and probably the way I'm looking at it right now, we'll probably go all the way through and probably end on the final Sunday of the year is when we'll end the book. But we'll take a couple of breaks for, Christmas. But I think we'll end with the conclusion of the whole matter in chapter 12. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
I'm really excited, honestly, overall to go through this, especially with the message yesterday. I have found myself in some scenarios where I look at it and I can stop and then I'll go, is it really worth it, what I'm doing, where I'm going, things I'm putting my time and money and stuff into? And I'm like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And it's crazy that we're going to go through this book. Mm-hmm. And I've had those thoughts more recently. Just what's the true meaning? Like, we need to look at the end and see where we're going and where we're headed from an internal perspective, because that's where our meaning and hope lies, is in Jesus. And I've done it so many times where I've just stopped, whether I'm at work or I'm, just investing time here in this place. And I'm just like, is it really worth it what I'm doing? Or how can I make the most of what I'm doing for an internal perspective?
You bet. There's a metaphor illustration that people sometimes use about juice and squeeze, and I've heard people use this sometimes when they look back and think about the time and the effort and the investment to be involved in so many things that take up so much of their time. And looking back in retrospect, sometimes the folks will say this. They'll say, I wonder if the juice that we received was worth the squeeze.
Right.
And, you think about those things. Going back to something that Justin just said, this falls right in line with pastoral ministry and also leadership and Bible study. But aren't the most effective messages and lessons formed out of life experience? Mm-hmm. I mean, isn't it true? And we've heard this said before, and I think you could say we've experienced this, is, before the Lord can provide a lesson or a message through you, it has to come home to you first. And I think that's what we see in Solomon's life here.
Yeah.
He experienced this at a deep and a personal level and quite a cost to him, mm-hmm. because time in this world, in a fallen world, time is something that we spend too often. When Paul wrote about it in Ephesians, it's something that we can buy back. And I think at the end of it, that will be a point that God will continue to bring up before us is, hey, there's a way to look at life much more than just spending time.
Right.
There are things that we can do to buy that time back and redeem it for eternal value. And I think that's one of the things that came up yesterday quite often.
Yeah, and I think it's, when you read an Old Testament book, I like to use maybe something in the New Testament that kind of parallels with it. But it's basically the same thing that Jesus said, because what Solomon does, he looks through the lens of life under the sun.
Yes.
So the under the sun is without God in the equation. It is with just an earthly perspective. So basically it's life and then that's it. Nothing at the end, no vision of eternity or what, awaits us in heaven. It's just basically for what's here for the now, the here and now. But he says this in Matthew 6. Jesus said in his first sermon he preached, he says, don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. But store your treasures in heaven where moths and rust cannot destroy and thieves do not break in and steal. And so for Matthew 6, 19 and 20. So I think that's the same thing. This is what Solomon is saying. You can have a lens of looking at life under the sun, or you can have a lens of looking at life above the sun. Get your eyes fixed on the Lord. That's what he tells us also in Matthew 6, seek first the kingdom of God, not be chasing all these earthly things that you think is going to, fill that void. And I think it speaks to, we mentioned a couple of things just as points, kind of observations, and I'll just give them quickly, and then maybe we can talk about each one. But in these first 11 verses, he says this. He says the first thing is that, life is under the sun without God in the equation is a boring cycle. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, that's what he says in verses 3 through 6. It's like the wind. It's like creation. It's like the sun. It's just this cycle that it's in. And it's just going to come back again. I mean, time just keeps, slipping, so to speak. And then he says that it's never satisfied. I mean, life under the sun will not satisfy. He says the eye has seen much and is never satisfied. The ear hears, it's not content. It's like the rivers. They go into the sea, but the sea is never full. And then he says that life under the sun will soon be forgotten.
You bet.
I mean, it's just, like a vapor. As James said, you're like a mist. You're here and you're gone tomorrow. And yeah, your close family, friends, loved ones will, remember you for a time, but then, you're forgotten. And
a lot of us don't even know like our great great grandparents, like stuff like that. I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Of just not being remembered.
Well, and that's what we said, like we talk about football stuff. We all like football here, but I mean, if you really think back, I mean, I could probably tell you who won the championship last year, but then the farther you go back, the harder it's going to get for me to tell you who it is without looking it up on my phone. I mean, and even if you love sports, now there might be some that you remember, like, that thing you remember about your dad, because it's just those key things. But like in general, most things you forget. And he even says, what we're going to do now, no one is going to remember. When you're doing it for life, it's just like Jesus said, what you lay up here on earth is going to go away, but what you lay up in heaven is going to last. And so that's the same points.
You bet. Now, we haven't gotten there yet, probably at least a Sunday away from Ecclesiastes 3, but that's where, where we're told that God has placed eternity in the heart of man. And the reason that eternal things linger and last like they should is because God has placed that in the heart of a human being to give us this sense of longing for something more than this world can provide. Once we come to that saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, then eternal things and even the essences of God's creation bring a whole new meaning. This life lived above the sun is a different perspective. I mean, Solomon sees streams flowing into rivers and rivers flowing into the sea. And he said, this is a cycle that just repeats itself, and one never really empties, the other one never gets full. But someone who truly has their heart bent toward Christ and the things of him in this world will even take a different look at creation. We realize, okay, what worldly thinking in the life of a Christian can result in that seems boring. We actually have a greater appreciation for the water cycle, the water tables, and the things that enable this to happen like that. How that evaporation takes place, clouds form, rain falls. That's another cycle like that. But you stand on the beachhead and you're watching the ocean and the tide move the water in and out like that. And you're actually aware that you're only able to see about 7 miles out there. Why is that? Because the earth has a curve to it. We're standing on the side of this ball, and gravity and its pull and hold on us keep us from literally sliding off into oblivion. All of these are things that a mind of Christ and a mind on Him enable us to keep a deeper sense of appreciation for. Solomon lost that during too much of his life, focused and preoccupied on things that he thought would give him pleasure. I mean, true satisfaction. Pleasure's fleeting, can come and go, but this is.
Well, see, and that's what the word meaningless means. It's from the word hevel, and it means like a mist, and it has the idea of fleeting. That you try to grasp it, and you might be able to hold on to it for a moment, but it's not going to last. It's unsatisfying. And, we're going to even get into that a little bit more next week when we talk about searching for satisfaction, because he tried to do all these things and it never satisfied. And I think what we've got to understand too is, for people that were listening yesterday, it's not the idea that life is just worthless and meaningless. It's like when you live it without a godly perspective, it is pointless. I mean, it's just like, I think about these young families and they're raising kids, and, they start having children, and then it's like in their mindset, they want to do all these things to have all these memories and all these special moments. And so they go to all these different places and they fill their schedule up with doing all these things to make all these memories. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then it comes at the cost that they're never in church. They never get their kids involved. They're never involved in, Connect or on Wednesday night or youth ministry. And then you get to the end of your life and your kids are graduating and gone, and you look back and say, well, what purpose was that? Because those things, yes, they're good in life and God created them for us to enjoy. But in eternity, you're not going to be talking about the vacations you went on. And at the end of your life, you're really not going to be talking about that. You're going to be talking about the things that you do for Christ. And I feel like that is something that we're missing is, yes, I mean, you want to give your kids all the great experiences, but yet you do it at the cost of missing out on the experiences that matter most, and that's with God.
Great point. Great.
And that's what he is saying here is I tried all this. I mean, he had all the money, all the pleasure, all the achievements, all the things that all of us would write down and say, yeah, I'd like to have that. 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 I mean, you look at everything he did, and he gets over here and talks about what he built and made and all the stuff. Like yesterday, we talked about how that, he had so much silver that he made silver worthless. That it didn't even count. I mean, that's what it says in one of the passages in the book of Kings. It says he had so much silver that silver wasn't worth anything. So he had to turn to make everything gold. I mean, he had more military, more servants, more money, more women, more wine, more pleasure, more achievements, experiences than anybody. Yet at the end of his life, he says, it's all pointless without Christ.
All right.
I mean, and that's what I'm hoping and praying that we realize that, yes, it's okay to have memories and moments and vacations and have these wonderful experiences that we can look back on and have pictures of. But at the end of the day, when we leave this world, all that's going to be left behind. All the accumulation things that we have, all the trinkets and toys, and there's nothing wrong with having, but people work their whole life for their house. Nothing wrong with that. Want to have a nice house, want to have nice things in your house. They work to get a car, that they have, and it's their favorite car. This is a dream car. But at the end of your life, guess what? When they take your body in a hearse to the cemetery, that car is staying. It ain't going with you. Nothing is. And so I think that's what we got to see. It's all going to be, and he even tells that over here. He's like, everything I worked hard for, I'm just leaving it behind for somebody else to have. I mean, it's a meaningless, pointless, gloomy life when you don't have Christ. I mean, and that's what he's saying. And I just, want to encourage the ones that are listening that are Christians that, Christ matters. God matters. And that's the question he's wondering. He knows God exists because God spoke to him in a dream, and I think he's a saved man. He lived his life for the Lord for a few years of it, and then he goes off the rails because he decides to go a different route because God told him, 1 Kings 11, it's a powerful verse, says God told him, don't go after these foreign pagan women because if you do, they're going to pull your heart away from me. And here's what Solomon said, I'm going to do it anyway. And I think that's the story of a lot of people today that live their life and they get to the end and they look back on their life full of regret and disappointment because God told them, the preacher man told them, this is what God says. And you say, well, I'm not going to listen to what the preacher man says. I'm going to do it a different way. That's exactly what Ecclesiastes is about. It's about what the preacher said.
Yeah, I think he's done a great job. And we're so thankful in this scenario to have Solomon to, give us that advice basically, to the next generation, basically. And you were talking about that.
Yeah. He's warning us.
Yeah.
Hey, don't do this.
And I kind of look at a personal scenario with my grandmother, that passed away a couple of years ago. And she had always given me advice, you always want to love God with all your heart at all times. And she's like, first your God, then your mind. That's what she always told me. And then after she passed away, I kind of questioned things like the meaning of life and how she served and how she did her life. And, did she look back? Did she regret? Did she, and she gave wisdom. She gave advice, just where she knew she was nearing the end of her life. And for her to give me that wisdom and early on, where I'm somewhat still younger and getting older now, but trying to find a meaning and find a purpose, it's nice to have those elders and stuff to, look back and be like, don't do this, do it for Jesus. And there's so many people that I can just name, that's just, I've came across, and they're just like, you got to keep God first at the end of the day. They've been through everything that we've been through in their life, and you got to keep going. You got to keep Jesus first, and you got to find something internal and invest your time in that.
You bet. If King Solomon were sitting in this room right now, And something you just said, Ed, if he heard any of us say to him, "Gosh, we're thankful for for what the Lord allowed you to leave behind for us," he probably would start shaking his head and say, "If you were me, you wouldn't be thankful for the life that I've lived, for the regret that I carry. You be thankful to God that I was able to take this part of my life that I regret, and He's allowing me to impart this to you so that you do not have to cover the same ground that I've covered. I'm here to tell you there's a better life than what I lived." Having been given all of the wisdom to rule as God would have desired for him to rule, and to not apply that to so many areas of his personal life, I mean, it leaves me in a bit of a tension like that. And anyway, it's the number of times, and see, with the indwelling presence of Holy Spirit inside of us, because He is eternal, because He is God, He is able to survey our future for us before we ever arrive there. And if we're misstepping to the point of taking things of this world and substituting for the things of God, if there's an uneasiness inside of us about, different than making a mistake as such as a willful disobedience, although substituting anything for a God who's jealous for us is a sin in and of itself. But that uneasiness that the Holy Spirit can provide us is worthy of respecting, because when we get to the end of it all, we will not have found what we thought that we were looking for. And but just so many lessons to be learned here.
Yeah, and I think too, I like this because I think it speaks to where we're at in our culture. Is we're always chasing after the new.
Yes.
I mean, the shiny, the new. I mean, you're all about. I mean, Austin, he's all about us getting new phones all the time. But here's what he says. I mean, nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, "Here's something new," but actually it's old. Nothing is ever truly new. I mean, if you think about that, and I think that's what sometimes we as families, parents, our personal lives, we're always chasing that next thing that we think is new. And it's, like I said yesterday, like Tom Brady said, because I used him a lot in the illustration yesterday, just because he's somebody that most of us can kind of relate to and we know who he is. I mean, he's my age. But he said after winning his Super Bowls, they said, which one was his most satisfying? He said, the next one. I mean, it's going to be the newest one.
I wrote that down. Noted that.
So it's like, okay, what job is going to be satisfying? Well, it's going to be the next one, the new one. What car? Well, the next one, the newer one. What house? The next one, the newer one. What promotion? The next one. And we're chasing all those things. And, and I was saying too, most of the stuff that's in our world is pretty much repackaged and recycled. I mean, you think about all the TV shows. I mean, they're coming out. Like I went back last night, me and Braden we was kind of in the bed there, and they were kind of doing some things, getting some things settled down. We were going back to the Pluto network, and they got all those old shows. Mm-hmm. But I was reading through a lot of those old shows, and they have new shows that are remakes, repackaged, like Hawaii Five-0. They have a new show, Hawaii Five-0. But that was back in, I don't know, Jeff, when you were growing up, I guess.
Hey, listen.
But then, I talked about Matlock.
Shout out to Jack Lord and James MacArthar and all of those people.
But all those are like, these movies that we watch, like, the Planet of the Apes and all that stuff. I mean, that was movies back years ago. So it's like all these new styles and things, they kind of come back around. Like the bell-bottom pants, they eventually will make a cycle back around, and, kids and stuff will start wearing it and thinking they're cool and think it's new. We're like, no. We did that back in the, 50s and 60s, I mean, so it's like, but everything's a cycle. Everything, there's nothing new really under the sun. I mean, it's just repackaged and recycled in different ways. But I think some of that is, we're trying to chase after that new experience, that new adventure, that new achievement. And what he says is, look, when you pursue those things, and we're going to talk about it more next week, there's about 3 things with the end of chapter 1 and end of chapter 2 and 3 that he pursues to try to find happiness in, to try to find this satisfaction. And he says, I pursued it all, and it's like chasing the wind.
Chasing the wind.
And you know, I used the illustration. I had a candle burning yesterday, and had the candle burning the whole time, and then at the end I blew it out, and so you could see the smoke going up, and how you can grab it, and you open your hand, and there's nothing in your hand. And he says that's what life under the sun is like. It's like grabbing the wind, grabbing the smoke, and you think you've got a hold of it, and you open it up, and you find that it just leaves you empty. And that is what this book of Ecclesiastes is about. It's about not living your life under the sun, but living your life above the sun.
You bet. What an honor it's been to be able to gather together, because Ecclesia is like an assembly, like a group.
Yep.
Solomon is the ecclesiastic. He's the preacher. And but Holy Spirit is certain to bring some wonderful messages worthy of deep, serious consideration about just how do our priorities line up.
Yeah.
And according
does
to
God really matter?
Yes.
If God's not in the equation, the first 11 and a half chapters is your destiny. It's going to be meaningless and pointless.
That's right.
And God don't want it to be that way, because God has given us his son, and he's given us his will and his word to realize. And this great book, I'm pumped about preaching through this. I mean, it's just, I'm hoping that it won't be a gloomy, depressing spirit at church. I hope that people will really want to dig in, because I really believe it hits us where we are. Because if we're not careful, we start chasing the gods of this world, and they start turning our hearts away from God, and we end up living a life like this, where we're at the end of it, we're like, my goodness, we didn't live it for the right reasons. We didn't live it for the right purpose. So, hey, thank you for tuning in today to this edition of the Overflow Podcast. We hope that you'll tune in every week, as we're now kind of going through this book of Ecclesiastes. And so we hope that you'll have a good week. Hey, like, share, follow the podcast, and enjoy your Monday. Happy Columbus Day. God bless you. Have a good week.